I'm Kaylee, and today I'm going to tell you, I'm going to move this. Hi, I'm Kaylee, and today I'm going to talk about all of the books that I read in, what was that month? June. June, right? Because now it's July, I think. Yes, okay, this is July. So the books that I read this past month, that was June. Wow, I really don't know what day it is. Okay. Before we dive into the June reading, I'm gonna reach back here to our Booktuber Shoutout book, and we're gonna shout out somebody randomly. Today's shout out goes to Tilly's Shelf. I will leave a link to their channel, so be sure to go over and subscribe to them. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up if you had a great reading month in June. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter and Goodreads and Storygraph and all the places. I read 42 books total in June. 22 of those were children's picture books. I read 7 graphic novels, 6 nonfiction, 3 fantasy books, 2 sci-fi, and 2 classics. I reread the first book in the Darkest Rising series. This is Oversea Under Stone. The Drew children are on holiday in Cornwall, and they find what appears to be some kind of ancient treasure map that has something to do with King Arthur. But there are bad guys who are looking for this treasure as well. So the Drew children not only have to search for the treasure, but they have to do it secretly. The first book in the series is my favorite. I just really wanted a feel-good reread with a really fun, mysterious adventure. And so on a whim, I decided to pick this one up, and I just enjoyed it so much reading it the second time. I always give this one 5 stars. I think this is my 3rd time reading it. And even though it is not in my plans for my TBR for this year, I might just end up continuing with the rest of the series and read the rest of them. You can read this first book just as a standalone, but I don't know, I find I'm just enjoying it so much that I might just go ahead and reread the rest of it. But I really shouldn't, because I have so many other goals for my reading this year. I'm already overloaded. I should not be adding more stuff onto that, but I'm crazy, so who knows what'll happen with that. I also reread Bleak House by Charles Dickens. I've already done a whole nother video talking about all my different thoughts about Bleak House. It is one of my favorite classics ever. It is my 2nd favorite Dickens novel. My first favorite is David Copperfield. My 2nd favorite Dickens is Bleak House. One of my goals for this year was to reread my top 5 favorite classics and then look at them again and see, is it really still my favorite? So far, all the ones that I've reread, it's like, oh yeah, this is still definitely a favorite. And Bleak House was no exception. I just loved rereading it. It just made me fall in love with Dickens all over again. I also read the 5th book in the Roswell High series, The Intruder. And then I got kind of excited and I read the 6th book in the series, The Stowaway. Every one of these books kind of leaves you on a little bit of a cliffhanger, and so it makes you really want to pick up that next book. When I was a teenager, I really loved the Roswell TV show. The thing is, the stories in the books are totally different from the TV show. There are a few things that are similar, but for the most part, it's just completely different. So it's been really fun kind of diving into this setting and these characters, but it's like new adventures. The thing is, these are very cheesy. They're really corny. It's just possibly the most dorky 90s teen sci-fi drama that you could ever imagine. But the nostalgia is just so strong that I really, really love them. They're kind of badly written. I mean, these are not great, but I can't help it. It's the nostalgia and it's just fun, and I've been enjoying these so much. I gave both of these 3 stars. I also reread Tolkien's Ordinary Virtues, exploring the spiritual themes of The Lord of the Rings. This is by Mark Eddy Smith. This was a reread. I've already read this one before, but this time I actually listened to it on audiobook and really enjoyed it again. This is absolutely 5 stars every time. I've done a whole nother really lengthy video. Part of it is spoiler-free, like the first 5 minutes is spoiler-free, and then I go into really in-depth through like every chapter, exploring all the different spiritual themes and Christian themes in Lord of the Rings. So if you want, you can of course go over and watch that very lengthy video, or just watch the first 5 minutes that's spoiler-free. But that one always gets 5 stars. Just so many great insights into Lord of the Rings. And then I continued on with the Richard Hannay series by John Buchan. I read the 5th book in the series, The Island of Sheep. Richard Hannay is caught up in yet another adventure when an old friend of his from South Africa pops up again into his life. Haraldson is being hunted by evil men who have a vendetta against his family. Richard's son, Peter John, is now in his teens, and he really wants to help his dad to protect their friends, especially since Haraldson has a teenage daughter named Anna. After dodging the bad guys all around the city, they escape out to the country and make their last stand. I really love the writing style of these adventure books. It keeps that tension and that mystery going through every chapter. There's a lot of exciting back and forth with the bad guys. It's like a cat and mouse game there for a while, for most of the book, until finally the good guys decide they are sick of running and they set up to make their last stand on the Island of Sheep. I've really enjoyed the Richard Hannay series. I'm surprised that, oh dear, well, that was my lighting that fell down. Let's hope it doesn't fall again. I've really enjoyed every book in the Richard Hannay series, so I gave Island of Sheep 4 stars. Such a fun modern classic. The rest of the books in this video are books that I received for free from a publisher in exchange for a free and honest review. I read Wildlord by Philip Womack. This is a middle grade fantasy where Tom is an orphan who has to stay at his boarding school for the summer. So boring. But then his long lost Uncle Jack invites him out to the country for the summer. However, it soon becomes apparent that Tom's uncle is hiding a devastating magical secret. The plot can be a little bit discontinuous. Like, things just don't always fit. And I feel like that makes the plot a little bit slow, but there is a lot of tension in the atmosphere that really keeps your attention. The magic and the setting are very imaginative, so that really captured my attention. The plot just could have been a little more cohesive, and the writing just doesn't always make sense. There's some information missing or something. It's just very odd. But I do really love the characters. They have really complex relationships. It is a good book. It's imaginative. The writing, the style of it is very good, very atmospheric and mysterious and mystical, magical. Just the plot needed to be a little more cohesive. I gave it 3 stars. Overall, pretty good, but it just had a few problems. I read the book that no one wanted to read. Once upon a time, there was a book that no one wanted to read. Maybe the book was dry and boring. Maybe the cover was unattractive. Maybe the book was just so high up on a shelf that no one could reach it. Or maybe the book was biding its time until a special reader came along. You! This book is so hilarious and weird. It goes off on these crazy rabbit trails and tangents that are so funny. But underneath that silliness, we get to explore some deep ideas about why it's so important for us to be vulnerable and tell stories and write and read, and how we connect with one another that way. I gave it 4 stars. This was hilarious and adorable. I read the graphic novel Loonicorns. A little girl with a unicorn horn mysteriously appears in Loonyland right when a plague begins to sweep through the city. Could it be that she brought the sickness with her? The unicorns and cyclopses who live in the city have to go on a quest to figure out where is the plague coming from and who is this mysterious girl. This is a very imaginative story. It's funny and weird and just like, what? There are several plot twists that really surprised me. The story was delightful. The humor was not always my style of humor. It was kind of gross humor, like poop and farts and things like that, but nothing actually inappropriate. Just not I'm not the target audience for that style of humor. I gave it 3.5 stars. It is really cute. I read Clementine, a graphic novel about zombies. I mean, I guess I should have known, like, it's a zombie story, so of course it's gonna be violent and dark and but it was a little too violent and dark for me. It's just a lot of graphic violence, and unfortunately there was a lot of profanity, and I just, too much. I did like Clementine's character. I felt a lot of pity for her. She obviously has PTSD, and she's dealing with a horrible zombie apocalypse. I can't even talk today. Her character has a lot of depth, and the story is not afraid to explore dark, deep emotions that she is going through. The plot is okay. It just sort of meanders around. It was okay. I ended up giving this 2 stars. I think other people might enjoy it if you don't mind a lot of violence and profanity, and if you like zombie stories, then you might like it. It was just really, really, really not for me. I read Patina Modern, a guide to designing warm, timeless interiors. So this is a mixture of old, traditional styles and more modern styles. It kind of brings a unique perspective to interior decorating. I really liked the juxtaposition. I am just having trouble with words today. I liked the juxtaposition of these different styles, just totally different perspectives. However, this is definitely like a rich people's book of how to decorate for rich people. It just felt like if their design is so timeless, then it seems like it should be accessible to everyone, not just if you have, your cottage at Martha's Vineyard or your brownstone in New York City. It just didn't feel like accessible for regular people. Anyway, I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. It made me feel like my entire house is inadequate. I read A Spoonful of Time. Maya's grandmother moves in and the two begin cooking their favorite traditional Korean dishes. Maya discovers that her grandmother has the ability to transport herself into her past memories using recipes that remind her of her childhood. They can't change the past, they can only watch themselves in their old memories. So it's a form of time travel, but they're not really there back in the past. It's like they're kind of watching a movie of themselves in their memories. Maya has a lot of questions about her Korean heritage, her father's disappearance, and she hopes these visits to the past will provide answers. But the more Maya finds out about her family, the more questions she has. I really love stories about time travel and the timey-wimey wibbly-wobbliness. I was very impressed with the imaginative way that this time travel works. The more Maya discovers her own powers of time travel, it's like the rabbit hole just keeps going deeper and deeper with the possibilities of this form of time travel, and it gets really cool. I think this might be the only time travel story that I've ever read where time travel is accomplished by magic and not with a time machine. The coolest thing about this book is the Korean recipes that are sprinkled throughout the book. Every time that Maya's grandmother teaches her a traditional Korean recipe, we, the reader, get to try that recipe too. I had never heard of any of these foods, so it was really cool learning about Korean cuisine. I really love the themes of family togetherness in this book. It's all about that Korean culture and family heritage. And I loved Maya's character. I was just immediately drawn into her world. She's extremely complex and emotional, and I just loved her so much. I think one of the reasons I connected with her so strongly is because she's a bicultural kid. She's Korean American. And I grew up bouncing back and forth between 2 different cultures as well. And so I felt that so strongly. The plot twist in this book completely blew my mind. I just never saw it coming. I had to wrap my mind around it and then think back to like the first scenes in the book. And with this new information, it changes everything, And so I had to like think it through for a minute and be like, aha, that's why she said that in chapter 2. The plot was just so amazing from beginning to end. I gave this 4.5 stars, just so stinking good. I read Smart Brevity, The Power of Saying More with Less. This book says that people are lost in an ocean of words. And if you want your message to be heard and understood, brevity is the key. I really liked that this book helps you to explore why your message matters. What is it that you really want people to understand about what you are saying? But in some places, I felt like the authors didn't take their own advice. They say that you should get straight to the point. But the first 17 pages of the book book is just the introduction where they're like, so we're going to teach you this and this about brevity. Well, don't tell me what you're going to teach me about brevity. Just get right to it. Like, don't give me this lengthy introduction. Just get right into the main content. And there's a place that literally says, skip the anecdotes. Don't fill in with all these cutesy little stories and anecdotes. But they went on and on with all these personal stories about when they worked at such and such a paper as a reporter, and when they started such and such a company together, and on and on. And I was like, I don't care where you worked as a reporter. Like, just give me the bullet points. There is some profanity in this, not a lot, but enough to annoy me. I do really love the design of this book. It has those bullet points and like really great paragraphs sectioned off with bold headlines. So, I mean, they did some things right. And then I was just like, take your own advice, people. What is this? It was just kind of funny that a book about brevity wasn't that brief. I gave it 3 stars. It was okay. A few years ago, the author of Spacekid Ilk sent me their first graphic novel, and I loved it, Invasion 101. It was fabulous. And then the author very kindly sent me their second book now, which is Stranded. So I actually reread Invasion 101 and loved it just as much as the first time. It's about this alien kid and his parents have conquered Earth. But now they're kind of bored with having to govern Earth. And so he just passes the job off to young Ilk and says, here, you just govern this planet. I'm just sick of it. So poor Ilk has to try to govern planet Earth, and he makes some friends among the Earthlings. It is so hilarious and funny and has just the best illustrations. Ilk himself is a wonderful main character. He is so sarcastic and hilarious. But he goes through wonderful character development through that first book. And then in the second book, he just kept developing. He just kept growing in new ways. He is sassy and grumpy, and I love him. I especially love the complex family dynamics between Ilk and his parents. It is really funny just to see how much trouble they all get into. And the second book did not disappoint. It was just as clever and funny as the first one. The plot in this one is really imaginative because there are some other aliens that come on the scene, and they have their own plans for Earth. So suddenly, Ilk becomes very protective of Earth. Like, you are not gonna mess with my planet now. The world building, the alien culture, both of these books are just so cool. Both of these get 4 stars from me. I read the graphic novel Everyday Hero Machine Boy. A mysterious robot boy crash lands in the city. He kind of stumbles around for a while and his programming goes into an attack mode. But after a while, he finds a place with a very sweet old lady who tries to teach him to be a human. Gradually, he learns how to fit in with society. But there are those who would use his robot programming for their own evil ends. I just love that there is a background for every character, and it's kind of gradually revealed through the story, so you're getting to know them really slowly and kind of get to know their past. The artwork is amazing, the plot is really exciting, the whole setting for this city is very imaginative. There's kind of like, it's almost like magic mixed with technology. I really love that poor Machine Boy is just so innocent. He has difficulty understanding some of the nuances of human society. I really liked this. I gave it 4 stars. I also read A Book That Loves You, An Adventure in Self-Compassion. This beautiful book has postcards and stickers and little notebooks, small posters, and a dozen other adorable little paper crafts and other little things. You can write lists and read poetry, make a collage, or write in your thoughts. Or you can just make a little paper flower. There are articles about slowing down and treating yourself with compassion, finding meaning in your life, and learning to enjoy solitude. You can sketch or doodle or cook a new recipe. Just so many pretty designs in this book and so many fun little things to do. I gave this 4 stars. I also read, well, I ended up DNFing it, but I tried to read Goblin Mode, How to Get Cozy, Embrace Imperfections, and Thrive in the Muck. So I thought this would be really cute, kind of like, hey, it's okay to be messy, because I'm such a perfectionist. I'm such a neat and tidy and clean person. Everything has to be perfect. And so I thought, you know what, this would be great for me. I just need to let down my hair sometimes. But this was not that. This somehow read more like a political manifesto disguised as this cute and cozy book. I'm not sure why, but there were constant references to politics, and most of them didn't even make any sense. I really don't understand that. There were a lot of things like that, these political things, and it just seems like you've just, I just don't understand why someone is talking about economics or politics, and this is not a political book. Like, why couldn't they just stick to the subject? If you want to write a political book, then great, go ahead. But don't insert political things into a book that's supposed to be about cute and coziness. That just really, really annoyed me. And the fact that most of those political comments didn't even make any sense, that just left me kind of confused. Well, then the profanity started, and that is when I just gave up. I made it to page 37 and then just realized, wow, this book is really, really not for me. I really wanted to like this book, but alas, it was not to be. I gave it 1 star. Yeah. And I read 22 picture books. I just loved every single picture book that I read. They were all so adorable and cute. So many really pretty illustrations. A lot of the ones that I read were like about nature. And so there were these beautiful, just lovely illustrations of plants and forest scenes. And so it was just like, oh, it's so lovely and beautiful. And I read a couple of picture books that were about art history. So you get to see like the different styles of different famous artists throughout time. And there were a few that were kind of like science-y books, like how do you use geometry to, figure out the circumference of a pizza? And how do you count in Roman numerals? And like fun stuff like that. Just a lot of really super adorable picture books that then I got to share with my nieces, and we got to read some of those together. So that was a lot of fun. And those are the books that I read in June. Please leave a comment and let me know what are some of your favorite books that you've read this past month. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe. And remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.